Let me start with an introductory comment on in-laws. An entire book can be devoted to the art of being a mother-in-law or a father-in-law. Being a good father-in-law, daughter-in-law, or son-in-law is also an art. A good relationship between in-law parents and their married children is a wonderful ingredient that adds dimension to a young couple's healthy marriage. It's beneficial for all parties involved to be able to get along. Parents who are hopefully older and wiser should do everything they can to make their children's transition from single to married life as easy and as natural as possible. Creating a balance in the relationship is no simple matter. It takes work, it takes dexterity, as we will see tonight. Parents must give guidance without being dominating or trying to control the show. They can offer an opinion without forcing their children to accept that opinion. And they need to be understanding if or when their children's logic differs from their own. Parents must be helpful and involved in their children's lives, but carefully measure how much is appropriate for them to intercede. You have to be very careful how much you're willing to do, and you have to learn to try to, as much as possible, stay out of the lives of your married children. Parents must know how much they can ask of their children, although children believe they can ask anything of their parents. In-law parents want their son-in-law or daughter-in-law to be just like their child. They also want that person to join their family rather than pull their child away from the family. Marriage teaches men and women to look to the future, asking them to commit to each other and to devote themselves to advancing their children's prospects, which includes helping them marry and start their own family. As parents, we have to do whatever we can do to help our children get married. To be a good parent takes work, and we all know that. Parents must care for their children and provide for them. They must understand the needs and sacrifice for their children. Parents must be mature, emotionally stable, and well-balanced in order to educate and help direct their children. They must have good values to be an example and a role model for their children. Parents must put their hearts and their souls and energy into raising and caring for their children. Mothers and fathers work hard at being good parents. Once they get married, and once again, they must learn to be good parents, not from the infant who they can shape, but a fully grown, fully formed person who is now their new daughter or new son. So now a new person comes into your life, and that's your new son or your son-in-law, or your new daughter or daughter-in-law. The new in-law feels the same way. Who are these people who I now have to call mom and dad? Everyone agrees that this is work for both parties. You have to invest some time into developing the skills necessary to be an effective son-in-law, or daughter-in-law, father-in-law, or mother-in-law. It can seem like you're walking a tightrope sometimes, especially for those newlyweds who take an instant dislike to their new in-law parents, and for the in-law parents who dislike their new in-law child. If you don't get it right the first time, chances are neither side will give the other proper a chance to adjust and reshape the relationship. So it's critical that it starts off as much as possible on a positive note. Addressing new in-laws can be the first challenge in a marriage. How many daughters or sons-in-law are still addressing their in-law parents as even after years of marriage? It's best to accept that this is a universal challenge and force yourself to address your new in-law parents as mom and dad from the start. That's the appropriate thing to do. That is the respectful thing to do. A new daughter or son-in-law may feel uncomfortable and insecure with their spouse's family. In the final analysis, this is about each person's self-esteem. Everyone deserves to feel good about their rightful position and relationship with the family, and his or her thoughts and opinions should be respected, especially if they're new to that family. Like newlyweds, in-law parents can also feel insecure, despite their age and their expected level of maturity. They want love and appreciation as well. Sometimes, ironically enough, parents who are more distant are appreciated more than those parents who wish to be close and lovingly involved in their children's lives. Parents need to understand this dynamic, realizing that the in-law relationship needs time to be established. It takes time. You have to water the plant. The more insecure a person is, the harder it is to build a good relationship. An insecure in-law child may look askance at any suggestion proposed by the in-law parent because he doesn't want to seem as if he's being told what to do, thinking they're trying to run my life. Until people are secure in their new relationship, this attitude is common and even understandable, because it takes a little time for the new son-in-law, daughter-in-law to feel comfortable with the new father-in-law or mother-in-law. When we pray for our children to marry good wives or good husbands, we must also pray that good spouses appreciate the family that comes along with the bride or the groom. When we pray for a good spouse, we must also ask that their family appreciate, accept, and love us. Now, a nice, cute joke. 2 funeral cars are driving down the street, followed by hundreds of men walking in the procession behind the funeral cars. Remember, 2 funeral cars. Thomas goes over to the procession and asks the first man, "Who's in the hearse?" It must be someone very important. The man says, "Well, it's my mother-in-law." my dog bit her and she died. Thomas then says, I'm so sorry, but tell me, who's in the second hearse? And the man lowers his head and quietly answers, oh, that one has my wife's body. My dog bit her and she died. Thomas thought for a moment and said, I'm truly sorry, sir, but can I ask you something? Can I borrow your dog? Sure, said the man. Get back in the line behind a few hundred other men that are proceeding in the procession. Oh well, just a joke. People think that if they are good to their in-law children, they can defy the rules of in-law relations and difficulties. One woman claims she does everything for her new daughter-in-law. She supports the young couple, makes dinners, brings over dinners, and buys gifts. Nevertheless, her daughter-in-law doesn't like her. She claims, and it may be true, that it's because she's programmed to dislike her new mother-in-law, as if all in-laws are guilty until proven innocent. A mother-in-law is usually branded as nosy, controlling, intolerable, competitive, invasive, and prone to overstep all boundaries. Unwittingly, in-laws become public enemy number one. That's just the way it is. Society has made it acceptable for people to make fun of their in-law relatives. Indeed, it has become an expected part of the relationship. This should be changed. Of course, some in-laws, like some parents, are not kind people, whereas others are kind people who display poor relationship skills, poor communication skills, poor setting of boundaries, and so on. I have dealt with numerous cases where young couples have called me on to try to help and navigate issues that they were having with their in-laws. And I'll show you some of the tricks and some of the techniques that I gave them, which I learned from my dear Rabbi, Rabbi Miller, and they're coming up. Most often, the snags between in-law parents and children are part of structuring the relationship. Just as a couple enters marriage with different habits, different values, different sensitivities and ideas that they must work through, in-law parents and children have practices and routines, beliefs and issues that they too must negotiate. Needless to say, it all depends on your view. In-law children are looking for respect, appreciation, and acceptance from their in-law parents. They usually assume that their in-law parents will automatically like and appreciate them if they are good in-law children. Unfortunately, some in-law parents misunderstand their daughters-in-law or sons-in-law and are too critical or too demanding of them. They want to reshape their lives, refusing to accept that their in-law children's upbringing may cause them to act in a different way than that of their family. After all, you didn't raise these people, so you can't expect them to so automatically, homogenically just act like you. The new mother-in-law may show up every day to help her daughter-in-law just as she did when her daughter got married. Although a daughter might appreciate that, a boy's side should know her mother should know her place and realize that a newlywed may feel differently and may need their space. Because couples are entitled to carve out their own lives, boundaries need to be set and need to be respected. Parents are also entitled to set boundaries. Parents can babysit when they're able to do so, but they don't need to be available all the time. Establishing clear boundaries in the beginning will help prevent hard feelings later if a parent has plans of their own and isn't always available. Sometimes kids get upset because they want you to be able to be available at their beck and call to babysit for them. Parents and children-in-law who want to create a close friendship can do so with communication and compromise, understanding each other's needs, and establishing clear boundaries. A girl may appreciate a mother-in-law who constantly buys her clothing, or she may resent her for seemingly dictating to her what to wear. After all, she might be thinking, well, that's how she wants me to dress all the time, and she doesn't want to be told how to dress. It's only through discussion and understanding that each can explain her position. Most people advise in-law parents to close their mouths and open their pocketbooks. This is something that I used to hear from Rabbi Miller since the time I was 14. It's almost universally accepted that you can say what you want to your daughter or son, but you better tiptoe around your in-law kids, especially around the daughter-in-law. If you have something to say, think twice and perhaps 3 times before you say it, considering all possible repercussions. A smart mother-in-law will train herself to keep her opinion, especially her complaints, to herself. However, sometimes it's going to cause her to feel that she's building a wall between herself and her daughter-in-law. Never expressing one's own feelings can a mother-in-law or daughter-in-law feel she's being controlled or manipulated. Even if the relationship looks peaceful on the surface, the players have a hard time developing a real connection.